So what is BFE? So we know the term base flood elevation, but where does it come from and what does it mean? So base flood elevation is the flood having a 1% chance of being equal or exceeded in any given year. It's also known as the 100-year floodplain or the special flood hazard area. Those are all three the same terms. So what does that 1% mean? That 1% means if I have 100 marbles in a bag, 99 of them are white and one of them is red, my chance of drawing that marble out, that red marble, is what? 1%. What it does not mean, and you hear a lot of people say this, is I'm going to get a flood there every 100 years. You hear people say that all the time. People come into the office all the time and go, hey, I'm looking at buying this parcel of property. It flooded last year, so I know I'm good for another 98 years. I'm like, you obviously haven't sat through the class, and maybe we can have a little refresher here. It does not mean that you're going to flood only once every 100 years. It's the 1% chance of flooding. It's the same as the 100-year floodplain, and it's the same as the special flood hazard area. Now, don't get confused along the way. Oh, go ahead. Question.
Who determines the BFE?
That the BFE is determined through the science that's based into the topographic study. A lot of the floodplain maps are based on topo sheets. They used to always be based on field surveys, things like that. Now they're using radar for a lot of that to be even more precise. But a lot of the general big picture originalities were based on topographic sheets that says, hey, I know this area is low. I know this area accumulates X number of X amount of water. I mean, they're flood maps. That's why the whole country isn't mapped. It's a pretty distinct science. You know, it's not just somebody driving through on a rainy day going, oh, there was water there, you know, and making up numbers.
Like, I'm just thinking, after Sandy, there's this area in Jersey called Belmar, and they're making anyone that was substantially damaged build at, let's say, 10 feet plus 1 foot of freeboard. So I'm just trying to understand, when they're saying 10 feet, is the water going to go up to 10? Like, I'm just trying to understand.
And that's what the BFE is determined, that's the safe height that you need to build at.
So that water doesn't come to your home.
Exactly.
So
and then your local ordinance is what gets you as the freeboard requirement.
Yeah. And that's actually the town that's implementing that. That's not, you know, like the FEMA came back and said, okay, you got to build at 10 feet. 2 feet.
And your freeboard requirement can range anywhere, because currently in Hillsborough County we have a 6-inch freeboard requirement. Wow. There's 1 or 2 communities in the Panhandle that have a 4-foot freeboard requirement.
Freeport on Long Island has 3 foot. It's the only one on the island.
Yeah. So I mean, that varies, and that's what bothers a lot of people. They're building something in one community, then they go to another one. They're like, "Why? Your freeboard is incredible." Well, that's what's been determined, and that's what's been passed by local ordinance, with the idea of preventing flooding.
So basically, the BFE, they're saying you got to build at 10 feet. They feel that you have to be 10 foot above the base flood in order to be safe.
Yeah, that's the idea. That we know that previous studies have shown that this is the given height, whatever that number may be, that you should construct at to not undergo any flooding. Now, where you run into the difficulty is contractors, developers, and everybody else want to say, well, it's 10 feet, I want to build right at 10 feet. They don't want to go any freeboard, they don't want to go any extra, because they're like, well, if somebody told me 10 feet, that's all I want to do. Even though we know floodplain X, for example, whether it's shaded or unshaded, we know floodplain X is basically outside of the floodplain. But what do we also know about floodplain X? Every year, something like 25% of the insurance claims are from homes in floodplain X. Going right back to that animation we saw where the water crossed the line, and everybody's like, no, it shouldn't do that, it should stop right there. Well, guess what? Just because you're in the X flood zone doesn't mean you're not going to flood. Yeah, there is lower risk. Can I buy flood insurance in the X zone? Absolutely. Yeah, no one will ever say, and people get confused with that. People are like, oh, you can't buy flood insurance. Sure you can. You can buy flood insurance anywhere. Is flood insurance cheaper in the X zone than it is in the velocity zone?
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's less risk. But when we know that 20 to 25% of the claims every year occur in places that are outside of the special flood hazard area, you know, we see the same thing with the windborne debris area where we live. The building code says you've delineated the line on the map folks on the coastal sideline or in the windborne debris region, they have to have impact glass or put shutters on their windows. People on the other side of the line do not. We'll get people that live in, it's a road. We'll get people that live on that side of the road and go, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to put shutters on my home. I'm outside of the region. I'm like, you're just across the street. The wind's not going to stop right on the road. By the same comparison, it doesn't stop right at that AEX line.
Real quick, back to the building to the base flood elevation, isn't it different between A zones and B zones? Like A zones is the actual floor that you stand on, B zones is the structure.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about that too. His question, if you didn't hear his question is, are the construction standards different between the A zone and the B zone, velocity zone? And they sure are. And we'll talk about that from some of the graphics we see that you use in the elevation certificate, just to the types of construction and the elevation of the house. A great reference for some of this is the FEMA Coastal Construction Manual that has some great information for what kind of practices, procedures, foundations, development is used for constructing on the coast. And we'll also see in the elevation certificate where we take that measurement, where our base flood elevation, finished floor, lowest horizontal member, whatever we want to call it, we'll explain that when we get there, is taken and put on the elevation certificate. So when I determine BFE, BFE should be determined from the flood insurance study profile. So wait a minute. This whole time I've been saying BFEs on the maps, the firm, and now you're telling me it's on the flood insurance study. Just for this very reason. Flood insurance rate maps depict accurate information, but they are rounded to the nearest foot, while the flood insurance study profiles are not. So be clear when you're answering questions, whether it's a test question, whether it's a consumer question, whether it's a client question. Hey, I just want to know what my general number is on the firm. That's where I look it up and say, hey, it's 7 feet. But if I look it up in the flood insurance study in the profiles, it actually may be 6.8 feet or 6.9 feet. So be clear, if somebody's asking you for like the regulatory BFE, that's different from then if somebody just wants to know, hey, what's my general base flood elevation on the firm?
So when they're asking where is the BFE determined from, it is determined from the flood insurance study.
Correct. It also appears on the firm, but the firm is a rounded number.
Gotcha.
Yeah, with typical rounding standards. So it's important to be clear on that our most accurate and our detailed number comes out of the FIS, even though the firm still has a number to it. So there's our flood insurance study. If you're not familiar with that, you should be, because being able to use the flood insurance study, know what it's all about, and rest assured, we're going to run through it in about a half hour, but it won't give you all the information you need, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what to look for and how to use it.
I saw that was like 38 pages.
Yeah, it is. So that's we're going to cover 38 pages in like 15, 20 minutes, but all flood insurance studies are basically broken down the same way. They give you a history, they give you how the analysis was done, they give you a geographic description. So any flood insurance study you pick up, the indexing, the layout is the same. That doesn't mean the pages are the same, but the general format is the same. It includes information such as depth, velocity. What's velocity? Velocity is the speed of the water, yeah. And the flood history, it's used in conjunction with the firm. You'll see we use these profiles, the flood insurance study, the flood insurance rate maps. They're all used in conjunction with one another. No single document, no single paperwork is to stand alone. It's like you never say, hey, I got all my information from this, or I got all my information from this. We use those in conjunction. And we use that to determine the BFE. Included in our flood insurance study is the range of Manning's End value used for the channel and overbank areas. Don't worry, we're not going to make engineers out of you, unless, is anybody already an engineer? Anybody a PD? Oh, well, there you go. So we don't have to make, you can try to make engineers out of me. I am not an engineer. But it goes to the aspect of Manning's End where we're talking about the resistance. Now, rest assured, you're not going to have to calculate any resistance. You're not gonna have to calculate any of that in the channel flow. What you do need to know is recognize how that value is used for determining aspects such as the velocity. Yeah, Manning's N basically defines the resistance like in a channel, whether it's concrete, tall grass, rocky bottom, mud, and we'll see a graphic of it. As I said, you don't need to worry about calculating, you don't need to know what the actual numbers mean, just to know that that's what results in how we determine how fast the water is going to move through a channel. Flood insurance study establishes the flood elevation profiles, usually 10, 50, 100, 500 year section. And this is the only place to find the 500-year event data. You know, we talked about those shaded, unshaded areas on the firm. Well, the only place to find the real data for those 500-year areas is in the FIS. Anybody need a little bit more time on this slide? Manning's N is the resistance in the channel. That's the engineering calculation that is used to determine what, and the resistance being by what's on the stream bottom. Whether it's tall grass, short grass, concrete, rocks, mud, gravel, you name it. Every item has a resistance value to it that can either, well, it all impedes the water flow. Some of it impedes the water flow greater than others. You know, if I have tall grass, it's going to slow down the water more than smooth concrete will.